Hello and welcome back to another edition of the World Wrestling Review here on Will's World. I'm the Heartbreaker Will Heathcote, and today we're going to be discussing another documentary that I watched on the network. This one is Ladies and Gentlemen, My Name is Paul Heyman. Now, as someone who his first introduction to Paul Heyman was when he began commentating on Raw, I had no knowledge of ECW at that time. It was before the invasion angle, and but I was immediately captivated by him because I'd briefly had because I started watching it around about the year 2000, so I briefly had King and JR commentating and liked that. That was good. And then when we had the introduction of Heyman, who I could never understand, had all these ECW hats and T-shirts. I really liked him too. And then of course we got into the invasion angle, and like his role in that became more clear, and I understood a bit more about the history and his history. And then he moved obviously to Lesnar, and that's when I stopped watching it, to be honest. And then since then I'd kind of always not really kept track of his career, but every time his name was mentioned, it was one that I was interested in. And this documentary only reaffirmed that, and I'm really glad I watched it. I won't go into too much detail, guys, because as always, I'm more interested in kind of reviewing it in general and give you guys an idea in case you were just wondering whether you want to spend the 2 hours watching it or not. But I really would recommend it. It wasn't quite as good as the CM Punk one, but it was still well worth a watch. So if you're undecided, I'd definitely watch it. But I'll just go through some bits and give you guys a bit of an idea about what it covers. In general, like I said, it was a really well put together piece. It chats really from his very early life. He started off very young and like hustling his way into the wrestling business at age 11, I think it was, or maybe earlier than that. So really, really young. So that was interesting to see that he'd always been a bit of a wheeler and dealer from the very beginning. And it goes through the different generations of him working for different companies, WCW, ECW, and then WWE, and starting his own businesses up. And then at the end, you kind of see him, happy to balance his life as a promoter and also as a father. And he said something that really struck home for me, as I'm about to become a father, that his legacy will be his children, not what he's done in life. That's all just what he's done to have fun, But his true legacy will be his kids, and that's something that really spoke to me. As I said, an upcoming new dad. But generally, it was a real insight into someone who, isn't a wrestler. A documentary on someone that isn't a wrestler and never really had any aspirations to be a wrestler, but always set out to be a manager, a promoter, a businessman, whatever, an on-air personality. And the documentary really goes to show that his determination for that and just how good he was at his job. And I think if you watch it, you'll see just how good he was. He's a love-hate character. People like to criticize him, but I think people will be quietly surprised at just how genuine he is. Yes, he's done things that maybe were a little bit kind of dubious morally or whatever you want to call it, but in the end, I think his reasons were good, and it's up to you to make a decision when you watch a documentary, and you can just like see the testimonies of some superstars that he's helped. I mean, there's obviously the big ones like Brock Lesnar. We know how much he did for them. ECW guys like Taz and Tommy Dreamer, but then other ones like Beth Phoenix, who he worked with when he was working in Ohio Valley Wrestling. CM Punk, obviously, another big one. Edge, in particular, he mentioned how Edge. The influence on Edge was great because it made Edge into a superstar. So it was really interesting to see their opinions on the man. My first criticism of the documentary is that the highest ranking person they could muster from the WWE was Stephanie, and that's fine, because as the documentary highlights, Paul and Vince have never really had the best relationship. They've had a business relationship, but you would probably say on a personal level, it was pretty much non-existent. But you would have thought for the purpose of a documentary, they could have had Vince, even if just to say one thing, would have been appropriate. But we didn't get that. So that was the first thing that was disappointing. The second thing was the fact that they completely missed in fact, and glossed over as being too generous, missed the whole invasion chapter out of the history. I know the WWE are not fond of that period because it just didn't work out for him. But, you know, similar to the CM Punk thing where they didn't mention his TNA tenure for obvious reasons, you can understand it if it was an on-air thing. Like, you're never going to get WWE on air to mention TNA, and similarly, probably any of the commentators to bring up the invasion storyline or anything like that. But in a documentary, you expect the facts to be the facts, and unfortunately, it just wasn't the case. They just kind of went from him being a commentator to moving to SmackDown as head writer or whatever, and then Ohio Valley. They missed the invasion angle at all completely, and that was disappointing because, you know, when I was first watching wrestling, that was one of the big storylines, and Heyman was a big part of that. So again, this whole WWE power trip they have about changing the history of the company is just not sitting well with me, and that's one of the biggest criticisms I have of them. But rant aside, personally, you know, I'm a Paul Heyman guy. You know, why not say it? You know, I've been really thoroughly impressed with him, and I can only say good things about the documentary. And if you guys have the network or maybe have the chance to pick this up if it's on DVD or whatever, I would definitely recommend it, even if you're not a Paul Heyman guy, because it has some interesting segments and it gives you some good history of the wrestling business through the eyes of someone who isn't a wrestler, so you get that other side of it. That's about it, guys. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you like these videos, if you want something similar. Hopefully gonna you know, keep them going. I've got another one coming up next, which is slightly a bit different. But keep liking and commenting as well. Love to hear your guys' thoughts. You know, what are your opinions on this documentary if you've seen it? What are your opinions on Paul Heyman? And yeah, you know, I'm just interested in hearing your opinion. So please subscribe if you like these videos. But until then, until next time, I've been the Heartbreaker Will Heathcote, and I hope you have a lovely day. See you later.